He said, didn't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I started doing this after I retired, because I'd always worked in an office. I worked as secretary for Home Depot in Charlotte, and I worked in sales for like 20 years before that, selling sporting goods. And so I've done all kind of things. And this one was the one that if you would have asked me back when I was 20 years old, going to say, you're going to be the caregiver of the year at this company, I'm like, right. My grandmother, my mother was adopted, so my grandmother, after her husband died, now this was my step-grandmother, but she was the only grandmother I had, and he had died of a stroke in 1950 when I was 4 years old. So she'd started caregiving, and she would have been 60, let's see, she was 60 when I was born, so she'd have been 64 years old. Mm-hmm. And so she only went to people that she knew. Her first one was my mother's sister that had a cerebral hemorrhage. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like we caregive today. It was like you move into the home, you do all the cleaning, you do all the cooking, you do all the everything. You wash dishes, you wash clothes, you do everything. And you don't see your family because you stay there 6 months at a time. So she stayed there. And after Aunt Nikki had to go to the hospital, she came to stay with me for a couple of days because my mother had gone to stay with her sister at the hospital. And I said to her at 6 years old, I said, Mom, why do you do what you do? And she says, what do you mean why I do? Because she's a real Christian lady. I mean, just like, she'd be, I mean, you know, no bones about it, nothing. So she said, because they have to have help. And I said, but the only thing I would like about it, because you got to leave home and you can't even stay in your own house. She says, you'll understand one day. And I'm looking at her like, nope, ain't never doing that job. So it was so funny when I had a friend that asked me to come to stay with his mother. She had Alzheimer's. And she was the kind where you could do everything for yourself. Mm-hmm. But when she was at home, she would put eggs on the stove and boil them and about burn the house down like 3 times. He said, Miss Shirley, can you come stay with my mama? So that's how I got started. And the way I got here is Melissa's one of her best friends. Melissa and she were talking, and she asked her one day, who took care of your mother? And she said, an angel is what she said to Melissa. And she says, well, the angel come work for me. And so she calls me, Kathy does, and says, Melissa wants you to come over there and talk to her. I came in the door thinking I was going to do a sit down, and she would let me know a month later if I had the job, because I was kind of old then. I mean, this is 77 years old, you're hiring somebody. And so she takes my picture when I walk in the door, and then we do this little thing, and she does this test, and she said, can you start work tomorrow? It was on Thursday. And I said, well, can I have till Monday? And she said, yeah. So I started the following Monday is how I got a job.
Wow. She came high.